Hello DevOps people, I'm back and I'm happy to have you on the stream. Welcome. Let me check if everything is okay. It's looking good. Okay, so today we are going to continue what I've started on Tuesday. I am developing an open source software named Jupyter that is going to be a practice project whose purpose it is to manage IT infrastructure. So I'd like to manage bare metal servers or AWS instances or DigitalOcean droplets with all the stuff that comes with that, namely storage volumes and network interface cards and things like that. Not sure how the software is going to look, but it'll be more of a vehicle for myself to demonstrate coding practices, clean code principles and things like that. So I'd like to make this stream valuable for you, the viewers, and to give you the most value, I'd like to encourage you to join me on the chat to let me know if you have any questions, if there is something I'm doing that is unclear, or if you have any suggestions how to go about things. Every time you have any kind of feedback, please don't hesitate and let me know via the chat. Today's the first time that I'm streaming both to Twitch and YouTube. I'm trying a dual stream setup, and I'm not sure how that is going to work out, but it's worth a try. So regardless if you are watching this stream on YouTube or on Twitch, please use your chat to let me know that you are there, let me know how you're doing today, and so on. I should be able to see everything in my chat window, and it should also display on stream. I think that's it for housekeeping. So let's jump right in. Let me take a look at my issue queue. Oh yeah, okay, we still have the create basic data model issue open. And let's see. Yep. I also have my branch connected to this issue. I always prefix branch names with the issue number so that it's easy to reference, and that way I don't have to be too descriptive in the rest of the branch name. Apart from resolving a few minor style and other issues, I mainly created a number of models last time, and we had the problem that all these auto-generated files left style issues that Rubocop then created a lot of warnings for. Most of them I was able to resolve on stream using Rubocop-A, which is auto repair. The only issue I wasn't able to resolve automatically was lines that were longer than the limit of 80 characters. Robocop didn't offer auto repair for this issue, and when I looked at the specific lines, I also realized that auto repair wouldn't probably have created a good result for that. For example, I'll just pull up one of the spec files. Here in spec models, resource type attribute spec, for example, with a name that long, it's no wonder that the files create issues. Oh no, it was in the controllers, I guess. So let's go to the resource type attributes controller. And so these lines were easy to split. Where were the more interesting things? Was it spec files? No, couldn't be it. So it can only be in the model, I guess. No, the models are even less problematic. Where did it... Let me think. It was the controller specs now. Okay, spec controller. Yeah, resource type attributes controller spec. And here I have some lines that were pretty long, and I was able to split them over 3 lines. But sometimes even this single line here, the parameter array or hash, got too long, and I had to do something like this and split it over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, with the params hash taking 4 lines all by itself. And I can't imagine that any linting program would have been able to split this automatically into a readable version. So I was more than happy to do this manually, and that way I was able to resolve all the style issues, and so my tests all were green in the end. Just to reiterate what I actually created in terms of models, my thought process was like this. Everything will basically be a resource, so a server or a network card in a server or a droplet or everything else. The difference between these resources is that resources have a certain type, and that type is also tied to a provider that provides this resource. So for example, AWS or DigitalOcean. And I just realized I'm missing another thing here. This resource obviously has a type, so it belongs to a certain resource type. A resource type can have a lot of attributes. So for example, a network card has a manufacturer, or it has in the server it has an actual IP address or something like that, while an EBS volume, for example, has a certain capacity in gigabytes. So each resource type has a list of attributes that may or may not be necessary to describe this type of resource. And if you have a resource of a certain type, it then will have a number of specific resource attributes that are a subset of the type attributes. Yeah, that's basically it. And I think this time I've described it more clearly than last time, now that the models are actually existing. So if you have any questions on that, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to explain things a bit more. Okay, so what I'd like to do today is build a few web pages that allow me to enter data into these models so that we get a bit of UI. And I guess the first thing I should do is create a seed file that will provide me with data to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'll go into the DB folder. Here we already have a seeds file, but what I normally like to do is have different seeds for development, and maybe I'll even have a seed file for production to pre-populate the database as soon as I'm launching the production application. So I'll simply, create a subfolder here called seeds, and I'll take the seeds file that is already existing, db seeds.rb, and I'll move it into db seeds development.rb. Here we go. And here we can create all the necessary stuff. So just to have a few examples, I'll start with creating a resource type. Resource type create. And let's simply get this here. Okay, I don't have the annotation gem installed that would automatically create comments with the database schema. So I'll have to rely on the actual schema file. Let me see, resource types, here we go. Resource types, we only have a name and a provider ID, so I should start with creating a provider first. Provider create, and let's start with DigitalOcean. In my Ruby style guide, I always add commas at the end of a line, even if it's the last line in a list. That way I can easily resort the list and don't have to take care of moving commas around. A provider only has a name at the moment. Okay, that's fair enough. So I'll be able to create a resource type for this provider. So I'll have to store this in the variable, and the resource type then will have DigitalOcean as the provider, and the resource name would be a droplet. And even though this is the last line, it'll get a comma as well, so I can just shuffle around these lines. Okay. And a resource type should have attributes, so I'll create a resource type attribute, create, and the resource type ID. Is of course droplet. What else do we have? We should have a name. Okay. So let's brainstorm a bit. What attributes does a droplet have? I'd say it has a data center location. I guess I'll format these strings in a way that I can process. So for example, I could say, okay, if I have to display this resource type attribute name, I'll title case it on the page, so it gets a data center location with capitals. Okay, that's that. And I guess we can simply create a list of names that way. So we start with data center location, and each of these attribute names we can use in here. We're missing a do here. Okay, so we just need to extend this list. What else might a droplet have? I could take a direct look at DigitalOcean, but maybe you have a few suggestions what I should add as attributes. What does a droplet have? Well, it has a certain memory size. Something like that. Let me just take a look at how I integrated this in another project of mine. DB, there still is a seeds.rb, and that will just, okay, create the that. That way the seeds file for the particular environment will be required. So we could simply spin up our Docker containers with Docker Compose up. Oh, okay. We're missing our Docker. Yeah, I think I rebooted this machine recently, so Docker didn't get started automatically. So in terms of my throat, I still have a bit of a cold, and I'll try and hydrate as much as possible, and I also have a lozenge if that becomes necessary. I'll just wait for my whale up there for finishing, and then I can start my development containers. Okay, meanwhile, another thing that I've realized was that I probably have to try and build a kind of object-oriented class tree in my database here, which is not trivial to do, at least not to do right. One aspect of that is that resources can be nested. So, for example, a network interface card might be a resource that is nested into a bare metal server resource, which might, thinking out loud, be again nested into a data center rack resource, and so on. This rack is in a particular data center, and this data center is, well, let's stop there. But so that means we'll definitely need to extend resource to have a parent resource. That's something that I'll do today. Now let's see. Let's spin up my development environment here. Simply the wrong run. Let's switch to Jupyter. Redis and Postgres are there, waiting for app to appear. Here we go. Good. I love the code name of my Puma version, llamas in pajamas. Okay, so we should be able to do a Docker compose exec in the app container, bundle exec rails db migrate reset, which will clean the database and run all the migrations. That's the way I normally set up a database. I don't like the db what's the normal way? db create and db schema load tasks, because the schema file, this schema.rb, simply doesn't contain everything that your migrations might do. For example, in the other project I have migrations that create Postgres sequences, and these sequences simply don't get reflected in the schema.rb file. So I'll have to do it this way. I'll reset the database and run all migrations again, and after that I'll run dbseed, which should give me exactly what I need, a database that has all that gets done in my migration files, and then it gets populated with example data. Boom! So let's take a look at what I did wrong. Relation providers does not exist. I think I have a... Oh, there's even a... That's a migration problem. Okay. I'll probably have somewhere where I'm using a plural what should be a singular, or vice versa. This is the... In which file are we at the moment? Huge list of stack trace without any indication which migration actually caused the problem. That's strange. Is that right? Let's look at migrations. No. Well, at the moment we don't have too many migration files, so I can simply look for this manually, but not too happy because this wouldn't work with an existing code base. Maybe I'm not looking right, but oh, it's seeds.rb in line 5 already? Oh. Well, that's the require seed file. So it's actually a problem with the seed file then. But why? Relation providers does not exist. Well, that should have been created before. Oh, we have resource providers, but we don't have providers. Interesting. Okay, so there was a table resource providers and I renamed that, and I forgot to rename the table as well. Good. That's easy to fix. So one thing I'd like to do is always fix migrations by adding migrations. I could, of course, go back and change this migration file here and rename the class and rename the table and things like that. But that works in this initial state where only I have this project installed and I can easily nuke everything and recreate it. But what I always try to do is get into habits that will always work, not only under certain circumstances like in this case. So if I create a table whose name I don't like, I'll create another migration that changes the name. Let's go ahead and do exactly that. I'll do a Rails generate migration, rename resource providers to providers. And let's take a look at how that is done. Changing tables. Actually, I'd like to rename a table. So there's a rename table method. That probably just takes two table names. And let's go to my new migration here. Rename table resource providers into providers. So if I do my db migrate reset, the seeding should work now. Okay, so I can see a few viewers on Twitch. Let's check that. We also have a few viewers on YouTube. Restream.io tells me I have no viewers whatsoever. That's sad. And not true. Okay, so seeding works. Okay, problem fixed. Let's go ahead and commit this as well. I'll commit this first. I'll git add this migration fix. So what I'd like to do is as well, always go into the commit message editor instead of doing -m and writing the message on the command line, because -m leads you to leave very short commit messages, and once you're in the editor, you are much more likely to create something that future you or someone else will actually understand. So I'll say rename resource providers table, and I've already created a standard commit message template that asks me why is this change necessary. I forgot to rename the table after when I renamed the model. Can leave out the other stuff, but at least that's... Oh, now I've added the rename of the seeds file as well. Okay, so normally I would try and reset this, but now I'll just go ahead and do an okay. Let's simply commit all the database changes in one thing. So I'll just do a gc amend. Fix migrations, add seeds. Okay. And now the only change left is the resource. Okay, yeah. Now I do a -m because there's really not much to write here. Associate resource with resource type. Obviously. And git status should be empty now. Okay. Okay, now that everything is clear and migrations run, we also have bit of data in our database. So I'll do these. So I've created another Tmux window here where I can simply launch a Rails console. So let's see, what did we create? We created a provider, resource type, and a few resource type attributes. So let's see, provider all. Yep, here's one, and if we say rt equals resource type first, we have a droplet, and rt should have a lot of resource type attributes. Resource type attributes. No. It does not. Nice. So what we could do is add a first resource. We call it droplet lon because it's going to be located in London. Resource create. Now, how are resources defined? It has a name and a resource type, and that's it. Okay, so it's just going to be a time being, I'll choose just this name, and the type is going to be droplet. And we'll have a few resource attributes. Resource attribute create. Resource is droplet London. The resource type attribute. Start multi-line. Let me see, resource attributes. We'll have a resource ID and a resource type attribute ID and a value. Okay. So the resource type will be resource find by name is data center location. It's resource type. No, wait, resource attribute. As a resource type, attribute ID and a value. Okay, So resource type is resource type find by. No, it's just droplet. But that's already coming over the resource that has a certain type, so I really don't need to give it a certain type. So we could drop this completely. We just need a resource. Oh, it's the resource type attribute that I need. Okay, that makes more sense. And now find by data center location. Okay, that makes much more sense. Fine. And then we'll give it a value of LON. The same we'll need for the memory size. And we'll just use 4 to express 4 gigabytes. That should work, and I'll refactor that in a minute. But let's just see if we get this into the database. Okay, I already saw that there is a much easier way to go about this. Did it try to drop the database? Yeah. Okay, so no, it already had locked the database, so I can't drop it. That's where I have to stop the app container, run my migrations, and then start the app container again. But now I can't use exec sorry, exec app. I'll need to use run app. So it starts a container especially for the migration. Oh, come on. That's strange. Oh yeah, okay. The Docker image it started this new app container from doesn't seem to be up to date, so I'll have to run a build. While this is running, I don't have to translate SQL commands in my mind into Ruby the way I'm doing this. Since I already have a droplet, I can simply go and say droplet London resource attributes create. And then I can leave off this resource attributes. And I could also say DigitalOcean resources create. And then I go and say droplet resource type attributes, create. So this is much more active model than before. And what I should do is wrap these things into a function, so I don't have to repeat myself that often. DRY, don't repeat yourself. So I'll simply create a function, create resource attribute, and I'll pass in the resource, and I'll pass in the attribute name, and I'll pass in the value. And then I can say resource attribute create resource type attribute is find by name, and value will be the value. And that lets me shorten this to create resource attribute droplet London resource droplet London name data center location value. London. Let's throw all this away. And then we'll simply do the same for memory size. And set this to 4. So that's a bit clearer, or cleaner even. Let's see if we can run this without problems. Nope, seeding doesn't work. Undefined method resources. In provider doesn't have a method resources, but it should. That's here. No, provider doesn't have It has resource types, and it has many resources. At least if the provider has any market traction, it not only offers resource types, but has actual resources that it has provisioned. In that case, to ourselves. Still doesn't work, but I'm pretty sure it's something else. Now we have an unknown attribute provider ID for resource. Oh yeah, you're right. Since the resource has a resource type and the provider has resource types, they are connected, but that means I can't use provider resources. Or provider, yeah, this one. Okay, so I'll go instead resource. Did we even create a resource type? I did not. Oh, that's a resource type here. That's an actual resource type. And a resource type should have a provider. Okay. So I was a bit too fast. But then I should be able to do DigitalOcean resource types. Create. Something is wrong here. DigitalOcean resource types. Create droplet. Makes sense. Then we'll add resource type attributes for this droplet, and then we create a specific resource for this type with that has specific attributes and values. Okay, looks like it makes sense. What's wrong here? Line 33. Yeah. Good. By the way, I should be able to run this as run --rm, so the containers get deleted afterwards. You know what? Let's automate this, so I don't have to memorize it. What do we have a rake file for? We'll create a namespace called Docker and add a task. Or well, how about creating another namespace called DB? And then we create a task reset. That does exactly that. It runs docker compose stop app, and it runs docker compose and all that stuff. Run rm. And then it runs docker compose start app. Now we should have a nice little new task. Ooh, lots of stuff. No Docker stuff though. Where's my Docker stuff? That's strange. What's missing? Still works. But the migration didn't work on the looks of it. Oh no, that's the migration. Okay. Okay, nice. So, what did we change here? Let's commit this first. And then fix C. Now that I've accumulated a lot of commits, I'll do a quick rebase so that things don't get too convoluted. So here we create the models, here we fix the migrations and add seeds. We could even rebase everything into one commit. So we get the new models with a working seed file, and we can rewrite the first commit. And that's that. Now we have a clean commit that gives us all the necessary migrations. It has a few controllers that are mostly dummy code at the moment, and we have a seed file that will populate these initial models. And it's all in a single commit, because it's all connected. Okay. Now, let's take a look at our console. If everything works as intended. We'll simply grab our first and only resource, which is our London droplet, and then we can say, give me a resource type or resource attribute. And let's say I'd like to see the data center location. No, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Our attributes don't have names? Doesn't make sense. Let's see what we get in. Oh, of course, yeah. Okay. It's just a reference, so the type attribute doesn't have a name. Interesting. This might be a weakness of my data model at the moment, that I can't query this directly. However, I could delegate that, couldn't I? Let's see, resource attribute. Delegate. Name to resource type attribute prefix true, which means I'll get a new virtual attribute, resource type attribute name. See. I hope you're enjoying this. You're awfully quiet today. Let's see. So we have a resource attribute. Resource attribute first. Undefined local variable or method resource type attribute. Oh, of course. Hey Slayer, thanks for relieving me. I felt so alone. You long for the day when you catch one of my streams outside work. Yeah, that would either mean I would have to change my streaming times, or you need to change your working times. Or you could simply watch the recordings, but then you'll not be able to participate. Speaking of which, I'll upload all my recordings to YouTube because Twitch will delete the VODs after a while. So make sure to go over to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. Or you could get fired, which is always an alternative. And many times an improvement. Back to my task at hand. Resource attribute first. Here we go. And now this thing should have a resource attribute, resource type attribute name. Yeah, and it's data center location. Okay. So does that mean we can do what we tried before, which is r equals resource first? That's our droplet in London. And now I'd like to get the resource attribute that has a resource type attribute name of data center location. I'm not sure if that's possible. No, it's not, because it'll go into the database with that. So I first have to get the resource type of this resource, which is easy. So I can do r resource type. That's droplet, and then I go into its attributes, resource type attributes, and find the one I'm looking for. I'm just trying to see how my models will be used in the application, because of course we might want to query the data center location of a certain droplet. So I need to get this. So this is the attribute, and now I can say, okay, r resource attributes find by resource type attribute is a. Yeah, and we get London. So I can do a pluck value. Nope, I can't. Why can't I? Okay, I still get a record set, so I get first and only. No, doesn't even work. Why doesn't it? Oh, because I can call a value directly. Yeah, okay. So it's r resource attributes find by the type attribute and then the value. Looks a bit complicated, but I'm not sure if it's necessary or not. We'll see. Okay. Well, that's nice. Is everything committed? No. What did I change? Oh, I added this delegation. Well, add this to the commit. Okay, so what else can we do? I think it's time to say, okay, that's all I wanted to have when I create this issue. Set up a few models that have us think more deeply about the data model. That's exactly what I've been doing over the last half an hour. So I guess we can simply merge this into master after checking that everything works. So let's run our tests. We shouldn't have any style issues, we should not have any security issues, and we don't have any unit tests at the moment, so my test suite should run fine. Coffee. Okay, 0 failures, no vulnerabilities. Robocop surely takes its time. Come on. At least it's happy. Ooh, that's right, we still had these best practices warnings where the form templates are using an instance variable instead of a local variable. Let's look up how this is meant to be. Rails best practices, instance variable with local. So instead of calling it with an implicit instance variable that, yeah, okay, I can see where this is going. I'll just explain it in a minute. Let me see. So that's in the views. I guess in everyone. So let's take a look at resources. Here, this is the input form. And input form uses an instance variable at resource, and at resource actually gets passed in here via this render form tag. And that's what you call an unexpected guest. You have this code, and suddenly there's a variable that you don't know where it comes from, and it's actually an instance variable that is something of a global variable. At least its scope is much bigger than this single file here. So what Rails best practices suggests instead is that we call it like this. Instead of a instance variable, we'll create a local variable which can have the same name, post, and then we can use a local variable in the partial. So it simply, well, the call actually is already ready to use a local variable, because it already assigns the name resource to the contents of this instance variable. So it should be possible to simply change it like this. Let's work our way up. Let's close all these files anyway. Okay. Okay. That should be sufficient, but let's run our tests again. What I want to do is look up how these local variables are used in partials. So Rails partial local variable. Passing local variables. I can use the locals form And then I can simply use the local variable. Okay, looks fair enough. And our test suite is at various best practices, so let's see if I actually did fix the problem. Good. Brakeman shouldn't have any issues as well, so everything is fine. And I'll simply add this to the commit as well. Actually, yeah, I have the issue reference here. Still didn't amend. No worries. Git is clean, so I should be able to check out master and merge my branch. And by merging, I'll automatically close the issue. Right. Okay, yeah, I should push it as well, so that GitHub notices my changes. And so that you can see it right on the GitHub repository. Now the issue is closed. And that's done. Okay, and that's a good point to stop for today. My time's up anyway. I'm realizing that things take quite a lot of time when you start from scratch, especially if it's not really clear which direction to go into. So I guess I'll have to do a bit more planning for next time, which will be on Tuesday next week at 3:30 p.m. British and Irish time, 4:30 Central European time. Oh, don't be sad, Slayer Darth. I'll be back. And yeah, I guess I'll have a bit of time to think about how to make things more interesting from next week on. And I might even start adding something like an API connection to make things more interesting. It would be cool to be able to add droplets, for example, right from the web application, and they'll get registered as resources with certain types, so that we get something to work with. I didn't think I'd get into these external integrations that early, but at the moment it feels like it would make sense to do so, to have an AWS integration or something like that. I'll think about that over the weekend. And so, as always, thank you for joining me here over this 1.5 hours. If you're new, welcome. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you're watching this on Twitch, follow me so you get your notification. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. It'll help me tremendously getting more reach. Even if you are watching me on Twitch, subscribe to the YouTube channel anyway, because that'll give you notifications as soon as I upload my recordings, so you can rewatch them. And spread the word. If you have colleagues or friends that you think would be interested in this stream, I'm always happy to see new people. If you have any feedback, if there is anything you'd like to ask after I shut down the stream today, simply go to Twitter. You can reach me as FullStackSensei. With that, I'll leave you. I wish you have a great day and a good time until we will see each other on Tuesday next week. Thanks and take care.